What's up, people that are watching this? I'm so sorry if I mess up or seem tired. Yeah, because I am super tired, but this will be good. Trust me. So, today I will be discussing the Islamic Empire, the Mongols, and the Black Death, and how they all connect. For my thesis, I didn't write this, but I'm just going to tell you. For my thesis, I think that they all connect through the Silk Road. It's probably right, but I could be wrong. So, let's get started. The Islamic Empire. The Islamic Empire is one of the most successful empires in the entire world. It lasted for around 6 centuries, which was a pretty long time back then. They believe that the founder was a guy named Muhammad, and he lived from around 571 to 632, which is a very long time, because people died at like 20. The people said that he was the last and greatest prophet from God. They had caliphs, which were like kings, which were guided by Qurans, which were like Bibles. By 750 AD, the empire stretched over 6,000 miles, and that's a lot of land. To the right, you can see all that land. I wish I could point at it, but that's not how this computer works. So I'm just going to tell you. They went a little bit into Europe, a little bit into Asia, a little bit into Northern Africa, but it was mainly the Middle East. They allowed people to practice whatever religion system they wanted, which was actually really cool because most people died for trying to, well, most people were killed for trying to practice other religions. Their main religion was Islam. Or, no, not Islam, Muslim. I apologize. And their capital was Baghdad, and it was this amazing city that had different circles that represented the different tiers of like their social structure. So if you were more in, then you were higher in the social structure. If you were out, you were probably a slave or pretty poor. They were known for having pretty smart people. They had scholars and philosophers and people that were good at math and science. For example, they had a house of wisdom. This was a library. And the best part about this place is it was translation place. So if there was a book in Rome, the people there would grab it, translate it into Arabic so the other people could read it. They had many little city-states which people lived in, and they were very big on trade. They traded lots of things all over the place through the Silk Road, which we'll learn about in a little bit. Eventually, the rulers started killing their sons, and that didn't last, and the empire fell in 1747, and the last empire was the Safavids. The Mongols. The Mongols were another amazing empire. They were in Asia. They lasted from 1206 to 1368. They were nomadic people, so they traveled a lot, which was actually kind of cool because they got to see a lot of land. They had different tribes in Asia, but in 1206, those tribes united to form the Mongols. Exactly. Makes sense. They established the capital at Karakoram. I don't really know where that is, and I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I'm not very good at this. Again, they promoted Buddhism, but just like Islam, they were very chill and allowed other people to practice whatever religion they wanted to, as long as they weren't forcing other people to convert. They were very good at war, and they had very good archery skills, and they were very good with horses. But their main thing was they were very good at capturing cities, which made them such a powerful empire. To the right, you can see the Mongols capturing a city after slaughtering the people who lived there. They were very good at controlling the Silk Road, and the Silk Road was this ginormous trade route that went all over Europe and Asia, and they would protect the people on the Silk Road from being raided, which was actually kind of ironic because before they would raid people on the Silk Road. Pretty funny. But eventually, just like everything, after a very long time of goodness, bad things had to come out, and the bubonic plague, or the Black Plague, which we will learn about, spread on the Silk Road, and the Mongol Empire fell. The Black Death. The Black Death is one of the biggest spread of disease in human history. It's when you would get infected and you would get like black spots all over your body. It was disgusting to look at. No offense to anyone that had it. Probably no one now. Around 75 to 200 million people died in Europe and Asia, which around then is a lot of people. It's even a lot of people now. It peaked in Europe between 1346 and 1353. It was mainly spread by rodents on the Silk Road, so that's how the people in Asia and Europe and all of them got it. The symptoms were fever, chill, vomiting, and diarrhea, which is actually disgusting because they did not have toilets or a bath or a bucket or any type of medicine, and they didn't know what this was caused from. They thought it was God punishing them for sinning. It was extremely contagious, so if you got it, you were probably going to die. They did have some treatments, and I put that in quotations because you can't see me, which was they would wear masks with herbs in them to try and stop them from getting it. They would try and anoint the people. They would try and cut off like the spores on their body, or they would try and cleanse their blood. And by cleanse, I mean they would drain your body, which would kill you anyway. To the right, you can see these people laid out in the streets, and they were either dead or dying. And they would keep these people in cemeteries, but so many people died that they ran out of cemeteries that when you died, and when there was enough people, they would stack their bodies on top of each other and burn them, which is, again, disgusting. Eventually, it died out after a few years, came back a little bit, but it was never as big as it was between 1346 and 1353. So, all of these things connect how? Through the Silk Road. As you can see, the Islamic Empire used the Silk Road, the Mongols protected the Silk Road, and the Black Death was spread through the Silk Road. So for me, this is me showing you that my thesis is correct for my part. I think it was all spread throughout the Silk Road. And to sum it up for people, because I know that that was very confusing, or maybe it wasn't, maybe you're just very good at listening to me, which I don't know how you could be. Here is my ginormous summary on how this all connects, and how it connects even kind of now. The key connection between the Muslims and the Mongols were that they both controlled humongous empires. Millions of people from many different races and areas were united by these kingdoms. Both empires were very involved in promoting trade throughout their lands. This led to new ideas and the exchange of goods between far-off places. Both empires were ahead of their time. They used paper money that was common to all their subjects, and the Muslims even allowed for use of checks. And I don't think they had very good paper or pens or Bank of America, so this was very impressive. They both controlled and built long trade routes over land and across the seas. They used camels, horses, wagons, and ships to carry everything that they could make trade more profitable. The most famous of their trade routes, which is what I discussed in my presentation, is the ancient Silk Road. They traded porcelain, silk, gold, and anything that you could think of, even ideas, along the Silk Road. Ironically, this road also led to the large death toll of the Black Plague. The plague started in China, but because of the Silk Road that was controlled by the Mongols, spread through Muslim lands and eventually to Europe. Eventually, many of the same people that had benefited from this trade network of the Islamic and Mongol empires would die from the disease that traveled along the same routes as did the flow of merchandise. The world would be torn, as no one seemed to have an answer to this horrible death. The world watched 75 to 200 million humans die. Many of the victims lived in Europe, but the origin of the disease was actually in a small province in Asia. The sad but unintended consequences of successful trade had brought about more misery for the human race than ever before. In conclusion, trade routes bring both good and bad. However, mankind seems to never stop exploring. Barely 150 years after the Black Death killed millions of people, Christopher Columbus set foot to the New World. Trade would be the main motive for imperialism that would divide most of the world up into the colonies. Even today, humans keep finding faster and better ways to exchange goods, foods, and new ideas. New diseases like the bird flu and Ebola still make people afraid, but trade and travel keeps happening. The world depends on better medical ideas and contaminate to keep us safe. Hopefully, the next pandemic, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, does not show up along these new trade routes. Thank you, and I'll see you next time on Crash Course.